Hello, team. We're going to go through the planche today. In fact, let me bring myself over here. So a couple of you have been doing the planche for a while now, and we've been doing it on the floor with parallel bars or dumbbells, which are both going to have the same effect. Those methods still can be used if we need to. However, if you do have access to the TRX or you're willing to invest in some of these gymnastics rings, I think they're going to be more useful in terms of progression in the long run. We can also do like a bit of a hybrid, like the pike press, if you've seen that video already, where the first couple of stages are with parallel bars and then we eventually move on to the TRX or the rings. But in order to see genuine progression, we're going to have to get onto the rings at some point, just because they are so versatile and require so much stability to happen at the joints that are going through their full range of motion here, that in order to work towards the goals that we're trying to get to, we need that improvement in stability to happen. So let's just take it as a given that you've got access to TRX or rings. And if you're an individual that doesn't, we can adjust as needed. So you will see for this first variation, this is level 1. Everyone can access this. You're going to have your feet right up into the rings so that they're about a foot away from your hands. And this means all of the weight can be in your legs, very similar to the pike press here. The only difference is we're not going to be leading with our forehead towards the floor, but leading with our chest towards the floor in between our hands, okay? In terms of technique, you'll see that I still keep my elbows tucked into my sides and my hands as close to my hips as possible, because this is what's going to lead into the full planche, which is what we're working towards, where your hands are as close to your hips as possible. We're thinking about if you were like a seesaw, we want your hands, your contact with the floor, or in this case the rings, to be in the center of that seesaw in order to create the most stability and balance. That's why in the planche we're aiming to move the hands towards the hips as much as we can through the lift. It's making it harder, but this is the kind of variation that we're working towards. So no matter what your starting point is, we're always thinking about bringing our hands towards the hips. With a press up, they just kind of stay stationary at chest height where they are. With the planche, we're moving them down towards the hips. With that, our grip is going to be very much externally rotated, with your hands coming down towards your hips like so, rather than a standard press up, which is just kind of this position here. You're thinking of holding onto the rings or parallel bars, a real external rotation, and then you're thinking about brushing your elbows past your hips and bringing your wrists in towards your hips as much as possible. And you can see that I'm able to get full range of motion through here because I've got the full support of my legs. So whether I'm putting in 0% or let's say 30% of the work in my chest, what matters here is that my legs are supporting me so that when I need them to do most of the work, they can. I could quite easily take my hands off the rings here and my legs would be there to support me. I've made it a little bit more challenging. This can kind of be like a level 1B by coming up onto my toes rather than sitting back into my heels. But if you're just starting out with press ups, stay on the heels and just work through this full range of motion that I'm demonstrating here, where you come all the way down and then push yourself back up. So elbows going past your midline, like so here. And you can see that I'm now leaning a little bit more into my hands. That means the chest is doing a little bit more work. I'm still leading with the chest as I go down. And then we can get into level 2. Level 2 is where we bring one foot back, but keep one foot forward. This means that more weight is going to be in the arms and the chest is going to be doing more work. But as we know with the reps, You'll hit a point of fatigue where you need to adjust if you really are working at 100% of your capacity. And that's when you bring that second foot back in to offer more support. We then move on to level 3, which is our elevated plank position or our incline press up, like so. And you can see I'm still getting full range of motion here. This is what's really important, is still taking that shoulder through its full range of motion, but just using the variation of the planche that suits you most. And you can see my hands are rotated out in that externally rotated position, and I'm always trying to bring them down towards my hips. Really important that you're always trying to bring the hands down towards your hips, just like we're going to be doing with the front lever row. And then that was just an example there, if I go back, of how I would incorporate level 1, 2, and 3 into one rep. So starting with level 3, then as it gets too difficult, I regress to level 2, same again, regress to level 1 to complete the rep. And that way I'm working at 100% of my effort the whole time, but based on my fatigue, I can regress the exercise to make it easier. Level 4, we're going to start to come into this tuck planche position, keeping one foot on the floor, putting as much weight as possible into the hands, but then always having that foot to support if you need it to start to regress that exercise back. But we're still keeping the hands down towards the hips. We're coming into this tuck position to really center our weight. And this is going to be what we're starting to use to lift the feet up off the floor, which is our next level, level 5. So as you can see here, lifting both feet up off the floor, and here we're essentially just replicating a dip. You all will have done dips in some variation before, whether it's assisted, body weight, or weighted. You've done dips before. This is what we're replicating here. So we really want to think about pressing through the chest. As I'm in this position, I'm still thinking of trying to get my upper body kind of as horizontal to the floor as possible, as parallel to the floor as possible. That is to really accentuate the work of the chest rather than making this just a tricep dip. So you can see I'm leaning forward here, bringing my knees up into this tuck planche position, and then lowering myself down as my hands pass my hips and my shoulders come through at full range of motion. And then it's a big drive up. And remember, to complete each level, to achieve each level, you only need to do this variation for part of your rep. And it's likely going to be the first part of your first rep because that's when you're strongest. So this is a really good example of what that could look like for you achieving this level 5 of the tuck planche. Is coming down through that tuck planche, but then you see I have to place my feet down right towards the end as I start to fatigue. Now on the way back up, I know the concentric is more difficult than the lowering phase. So I come back into this elevated push-up position. I then have to regress it even further, coming back into this one leg forward position, which was level 3, I think. And then all the way back to level 2/level 1 to come back up. So you can see how I've regressed myself right through those stages, but still kept myself at 100% effort. Now here is where I demonstrate where I'm actually at with my planche press up, because this will be a really good indication of, number one, what the next level is, what we're working towards if you achieve that tuck planche. But number two, what it actually looks like to go through this full spectrum of levels, working from your hardest possible position to still your hardest possible position, but in that new realm of fatigue. Okay. And then all you have to do is copy and paste this template that I've given you of working at your most difficult variation all the way down to one of the lower levels based on your level of fatigue. Just apply it to your level of strength, and that is the key to force negatives. So I'm coming up into this tuck, and what we're looking for in level 6, if you can do the tuck planche, which is essentially replicating a body weight dip but leaning forward a bit more, is I'm now trying to get my hips level to my shoulders. The planche is all about the more you move your hands away from your shoulders, the more difficult it becomes. So what we're doing is getting our shoulders nice and high, moving our hands backwards towards our hips, and then we can put even more of our weight into our pushing muscles, predominantly our chest, but our triceps and shoulders too, if we start to get our hips elevated to level with the shoulders. So that is what I'm trying to do here, as well as kind of bring my knees back as well to start to extend into the full planche. But obviously, I can't do a lot of that at this stage. What you'll notice here is I'm still keeping my arms tucked. I'm still thinking about driving my hands back towards my hips, but I'm trying to get parallel to the floor as much as possible. So if you saw someone doing a dip like this, you would think it was weird. But because we're trying to progress it onto that planche position of like this, but my legs all the way out behind me, we've got that kind of context as to why we're trying to achieve this parallel position. If you want to think about it in terms of weights, this is just like an inverted bench press, but I'm the weight instead of the bar, and we're trying to make it as difficult as possible. So as it gets more and more difficult, you'll see I start to come back into that tuck planche position, level 5. I'm still trying to keep level with the floor as much as possible. The interesting thing about the planche is that it gets a little bit easier at the bottom here. Like the strength curve, it goes easy, really, really difficult, and then it starts to curve back down and starts to become easier at the bottom. So you might be able to find that you can then, once you've kind of regressed it back in the middle of the lowering phase to accommodate that fatigue, you can actually then come back out and make it a bit more difficult, which you can see here as I start to extend my legs back ever so slightly again and keep my hips up. Eventually, I finish the lowering phase of the rep, still coming through that full range of motion. And now we're trying to work ourselves back up. I find the position that is going to be most difficult for me, but I can still move through with minimal assistance required. I've just accumulated a whole load of fatigue in that lowering phase. So I know that I'm not going to be strong in this position, but I still need to pick the most difficult variation for me in that moment to test myself, particularly right at the start of the concentric phase. I'm testing myself to see what level of or what variation of the planche I could possibly try and achieve with my current strength threshold. So there's a big drive here as I start to lift my knees into that tuck planche. I barely move an inch before I have to give up and extend those legs back out to this incline press up position, driving my hands towards my hips the whole time, keeping my elbows tucked in. And you can see I actually end up using quite a lot of back bend there to come up. So that is an example of how we've progressed from, or regress rather, from level 6 all the way down through level 5 / back up to level 6, then to 4 and 3 on the way back up. This is my second rep, trying to get those hips level with my shoulders, trying to get my upper body parallel to the floor as my hands drive towards my hips. I think the fatigue from the first one definitely set in. That's probably, I would say, the best rep I've done on the planche up until this point. I felt the most connection there. So then the fatigue really set in here. So you can see big test of what I can do. I've already regressed it back to level 3-ish with this incline press up position. But the fatigue is so great from the lowering phase that this is my new upper limit. And I don't actually know whether I can push myself up through this or not. The whole point is I'm testing my strength here. I'm testing to see if I can push myself up at all. I think I maybe get an inch or two, and then I have to adapt it based on my new level of fatigue, choosing the different variation, which I think is maybe just me creating a whole load of bend in the back. And that's obviously changing the angle that I'm pushing myself up at to make it easier and easier as that fatigue sets in. Final rep, and this is where I think I go through the full, more or less the full spectrum of levels we have for the planche here. So still trying to lower myself down, but you can see that it's much more of a tuck planche, like level 5 rather than level 6, not getting my hips as high. And then I think I try and give myself a bit of a push in the tuck planche back up. It doesn't work, so I come to this incline press up position. Then I have to bring that foot in, so we're all the way back to level 2 at this point. And maybe I manage to get myself up. Yeah, just about. But you can see that that position there is still, this is me still working at 100%, but it's all the way back to level 2. So I've been able to, throughout however long this set was of 3 reps, probably 5-6 minutes long, I've been able to work at 100% of my strength capacity because I've manipulated the position of my body, regressing back through the levels of the planche in order to find that sweet spot of what is me pushing at 100% of my strength capacity or even trying to achieve more, whilst either during the force negative, gravity is pushing me down, or on the concentric portion of the lift, the way back up, I'm giving myself just enough support to be able to move through the rep. And it's kind of stop, start as we hit those milestones. And then eventually you finish the rep. So any questions on the planche, let me know. I'll send through the video link of this as well, so you can watch the video without me pausing every 5 seconds.